Well, good morning, church, and I hope you're having a great Thursday, getting really close to Christmas. And as we continue to look back to the Christmas story, this last week we talked about Joseph. And one thing Pastor Brandon mentioned was this idea of worshiping in chaos. And one of the discussion questions was really around how do we worship in times of chaos? How can we make sure we're worshiping in times of chaos? And that really, I think it boils down to we need to look at the word worship before we even get to the question. Because a lot of times when I say the word worship, most people think, oh, well, like the music on a Sunday morning, or maybe a worship service, like the whole worship time together, whether that's online or in person in some way. So that's what people think of, but I think Romans 12:1 really opens our eyes to what worship truly is. And it's so much more than any one activity or even one part of our week. As you look at Romans 12, chapter 1, it says, "Therefore, brothers and sisters, in view of the mercies of God, I urge you to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true worship." Now, what's interesting with that is, one, it doesn't mention just certain times of the week. It says, just present your bodies as a living sacrifice, period. That means that's a constant thing we're having to do. And not only that, but that's a lot more than just an action would say. That's changing your mindset behind what you do. That's saying, God, look, there's a lot of things I selfishly want to do, I personally would love. But I recognize I need to be doing what you want me to do. So may I reflect your heart. And even if it goes against what I feel like doing in the moment, I want to be doing what you've called me to. That heart and mindset needs to be behind everything we do. I read a book a while ago that basically says we're always worshiping something, whether we realize it or not. And that's a really sobering fact, because I think we'd all admit we're not constantly, every second of the day, thinking about our faith. We get distracted by maybe it's the busyness of life or other things in our daily basis where our mindset needs to be, how can I glorify God through this? How can I point people to God's love through this? How can I praise God for who He is through this? That every part of our lives would reflect who He is. And as you look at the Christmas story, Joseph and Mary had a lot of craziness. That's why our series is called From Chaos to Christmas. Recognizing that even though that story is so routine to us because we've heard it so often, there's a lot of really unexpected and just crazy things going on. And that even through that, they worshiped. They praised God for who He was, and they obeyed. Even just obeying what God's called us to is some form of worship. So what I challenge you to is really think about, what do you think of as worship? And are you closing your mind off to so many different parts of our lives that are in fact worship to God if we're living it out? God cares a lot more about our hearts than just some action. Every part of how we live our lives should be considered worship to God. So I hope you guys have a great rest of the week and continue wrestling with, how can I worship God not only through everything I do, but regardless of circumstance, because God absolutely deserves to be worshiped. We'll see you guys next week.